Hi, John Ames with RE/MAX First Realty here in St. George. Today we're going to take a few minutes to talk about, so how do I pick a lender? How do I pick the right lender? More importantly is, how do you pick a lender that's actually going to close the loan for you? Because that's the important thing about the lender relationship. It's not about how good of a friend they are. It's not about how good a rates they offer or about special programs. It's the question you have to answer in your own mind, and based on the reputation is, will they actually close my loan? So let me talk about a couple of the 4 or 5 things that we use in terms of picking a lender, and that any prospective buyer should as well. Number one is when you go into a geographic market, if you go into Sacramento, or if you come into St. George, if you go into Phoenix, you want to use a lender who actually resides and works in that marketplace, because every market has its own specific intricacies in terms of special things in that area that will cause a lot of grief for lenders that aren't familiar with that local marketplace. So we always advise our clients, even the ones that come in with a pre-qual letter from out of state and so forth, we always advise them, let's also get you pre-qualified with a lender in our market that knows our market and our subdivisions and our HOAs and our special assessments and things like that. Number two is the fact is you want to use a lender that has in-house underwriting. What in-house underwriting means is when you walk into that lender's office and you do your loan application with them, the person who's actually going to approve your loan and review your entire loan file also physically resides in that office. So if you go into a market and they say our underwriting is done in Denver, or it's done in Phoenix, or it's done in San Francisco, well, what that tells you is you're going to add time and prospective delays in terms of your loan, as well as possible communication issues that may cost you the fact of not being able to close that house. So if you choose a lender, you want to ask them, do you do in-house underwriting? Is that in-house underwriting right here physically in your office in St. George, Utah? The other thing we see on a regular basis, and this is probably one, it's a little bit delicate situation, but we feel like it's important for our clients to understand. A lot of times a client of ours, a buyer, will come to our marketplace and they'll explain, I have an uncle who's a lender up in Seattle, and they're going to do the loan for me. Well, for us as agents in our market, and most real agents will tell you, frankly, when someone says, I have a family member that's a lender, and more importantly, they're not here in the local marketplace, it's like the kiss of death to us in terms of knowing that we may run into a challenge. So if you have a family member that's going to do the loan for you, that's probably okay if they're a local person in the marketplace where you're buying the house and where they're very active as a lender. But for the sake of doing a loan with a family member or a very close friend as a favor, we would tell you every time without exception, you probably ought to consider at least talking with 1 or 2 other very reputable lenders in that marketplace to see if, number one, if their rates and fees are the same as your quote family member, but more importantly is there is a much, much higher probability that they will actually close the loan for you versus a family member may not be able to. Just a recent experience in the last 2 weeks, we had a buyer here, came from out of state, came in with their pre-qual letter. When we asked and inquired about the lender, they said, oh, this is a relative of mine, they're going to do the loan for me. We'd asked some questions about the buyer's ability to buy and so forth. We had some concerns about it, and we recommended to them that they actually talk with one of our other lenders because we wanted to help them actually buy a house. They went back and talked to their family member, and their family member said, I will absolutely close this loan. You have nothing to be concerned about. And 3 weeks later, that buyer walked away and lost all their earnest money on that house because their family member could not close the loan for them. So those are some of the tips and ideas that we use in terms of picking a lender. So pick a lender that's very reputable, pick a lender that has in-house underwriting, pick a lender that has offices and people that actually work in the market where you're buying. And as well, be cautious in terms of using a family or friend that is not in the local market. I'm John Ames at RE/MAX First Realty here in St. George. Pick up the phone and call us if we can help you in St. George at 435-674-6011.